Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Our episodes air every Friday at noon. And today's episode, I'm excited about this because he's only in town for a very short time and I scooped him up, is my friend Tony, who has 30 years of continuous sobriety from alcohol and drugs.
Yes.
And
Well,
drugs. And so he has quite the story. And actually, right before this recording, a couple of days ago, had a brush with death, and it was kind of crazy because I call him on the phone, and he's driving to Tonopah, and for a recovery event, and he's all like, "So, well, this just happened. You know, my windshield is now inside my car," and I'm just like, and I'm driving a U-Haul, and I'm thinking, wow, like, can you imagine yourself 30 years ago, how you would have reacted to that?
oh, I know what I would have done. I would have felt sorry for everybody on the road.
Right? Bodies would be flying. But yeah, no. So it's kind of interesting because people can have a certain amount of time, and yet maybe they don't feel like when you talk to them that they have recovery. And then there are people who you've seen walk through some stuff, and then and maybe you know some things that they've been through, and you go, God, that person has a great story. Because it's not just that we can walk through things, it's how we start learning how to walk through things that give us the inner strength and make us an inspiration to other people who can't fathom walking through illness, deaths of other people, family issues, divorces, relationship issues with our kids or other family members, etc., and our own as we get older, even how we deal with life and work and business and having businesses and stuff like that. So there's so much that we learn in recovery, not just how not to drink and do drugs, not even just how to be comfortable in our own skin, but how to live life on life's terms and have like insights. Because I'm a business owner too. I went to college, and they did not teach how mentally to like handle, because they didn't have. So this is your curriculum, studying business, and if you're an alcoholic, go into room 104, and like you'll learn a little bit about that, and that'll help you. Like I didn't have that, and so that's what it is. Thank you for coming and making the time to be on this show.
No problem.
And
It's my
so
pleasure.
your sobriety date is August.
August 12th, 1993.
So he just celebrated
30
30
years.
years. 30 years, which every time we make a chip for somebody, and I just made one for you, has 3 X's on it. Everybody's always like, oh, I get to be 3 X's now. So yeah,
Triple X.
triple X. All right, so let's start off like we usually do. Tell us a little bit about little Tony and how he grew up and what maybe made him more likely to need to or desire drinking and doing drugs to self-medicate.
Sorry about this phone. Forgot
It's
about
okay.
that one. Sorry about that. Yeah, I basically started off. I'm number 7 of 8 children.
Oh, wow.
Born in Harlem, New York.
Okay.
On welfare, food stamps, Medicaid. We lived in a 4-bedroom apartment, all 8 of us, plus my mother. My father was thrown out of my house when I was 2. Divorced when I was 12.
Why was he thrown out?
My mother called him an alcoholic.
Oh,
And I didn't know that he was an alcoholic because I've never seen him drunk. I've
right.
seen him drinking, all the time, but I'd never seen him drunk. So I hated my mother for calling him an alcoholic. Because she would always say, you're going to be like your father. You're going to be like your father. You're going to be like your father. You're no good, this and that. And I was the son that was to be nobody. I was always told I was going to be nobody. I was always told I wasn't worth it. And I got all the hand-me-downs. I have 3 older brothers. Now I have 2, unfortunately. One passed a couple months ago.
Oh,
And he was the one that I was compared to. Believe it or not, he died in his disease.
wow.
He wound up getting cancer, and he just died 2 months ago.
Mm.
But we always had parties with Spanish family, so we always had parties, and how I found out how to be the good son was I'd go around cleaning up, the Manischewitz Concord grape wine, the Bacardi, the Rheingold, the Schaefer, all the good beer cans.
Manischewitz.
On the way to the sink, you smell it, it didn't smell good, and then you taste it, it didn't taste good. But once you do that to about 10 different alcohols, it starts getting you a little dizzy. I get in the middle of the floor and start dancing, and everybody would take pictures and say, "Oh, look at Tony! Look how cute! Oh my God!" And
So you clean and you dance. I mean, what family doesn't need that?
I felt great. I was like, "Oh, this is how I get the attention I crave."
Right.
And that's what I did. Every party, I cleaned up, and we did what we had to do. I started working since I was 8 years old because my mother said, "If you want something, I don't have it. You're gonna go earn it."
Okay.
So I lived in Manhattan where there's a bunch of stores, and
Right.
I'd go out there and get the little old lady's bag and grab their bags and carry it to the house, to the projects, walk them upstairs and get a little quarter. And quarter was a lot.
It was a
those days.
lot. I used to do the laundry, and how old are you now?
I'm 65 last
So
week.
I'm
2 weeks ago.
52. I'm 52, right? So like I used to do the laundry, and you would get 5 cents for each part of doing the laundry. So like 25 cents or 50 cents for like a load or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it would take me so much cleaning to get $10.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
It
Is that
was a lot.
crazy?
Yeah, it was.
The amount of
surprised.
effort. Child labor, I tell you.
Yeah, there you go. Now it's against the law.
What?
Now it's against
And
the
my
law.
mother accused me of lying about how much I cleaned because she couldn't fathom that I did enough to make $10.
Ah,
Yeah.
she wants you to make $8.
Oh, the joys of living in dysfunctional families and alcoholism. It's just it's warm as your heart.
Yeah. It's amazing. I actually also I was physically, mentally, verbally abused.
Yeah, me too.
So that took a lot part when I felt good, with the alcohol in me, I felt good about myself and I didn't care and went to work and I wasn't hardly home. And finally at 14, I ran away from home.
How are you fit? I know you were mentally abused because the things, being compared to another sibling and being told that you're not going to amount and that maybe like you reminded her of your dad.
Yeah.
That's hard. And then not having a healthy male role model, that's hard. How are you physically abused?
Well, it was where I got blamed for everything. And my mother was, I didn't realize until she passed away that she had issues also.
Yeah.
She had issues of being a single parent, being alone, being alone or whatever. And 8 kids tortured her.
And being attracted to an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Who's using.
Yeah.
And
she
having
was
kids and being a single parent of 1 kid, let alone 8.
8 kids and 5 miscarriages.
Whoa.
Yeah. So.
Wow, she was a strong woman.
And my father there was no TV. What can I do?
Oh my God.
I said, Dad, you drove Mom crazy.
That's crazy.
Well, now, and so she would, I've got scars throughout my body, my head, my back, whatever, where at 14 I decided to leave. And I went to a nearby police station. And I told them, I says, I got to get out of my house. And at that time, those days, you couldn't be in the street after 10 o'clock. And the cop told me, it's Saturday, it's 10 o'clock. What are you doing in the street? You could get arrested. And brought home. I said, don't bring me home, please. I need to go somewhere.
So I grew up on Long Island,
Huh.
a good decade after you and change. I was everywhere. Like nobody.
Well,
we
10
didn't
years
have-
later, they slacked up a little bit.
Yeah, that's crazy though.
Oh, in Manhattan, it was.
In Manhattan too. Like it was people were just whatever. I think they realized they can't control.
They couldn't control it. That's what it was because.
It's like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding. Oh my God, curfews.
Oh, it started becoming, lackadaisy, but that time.
Oh, but so you grew up in the 60s.
Yeah, and that was, I was born in 58.
Yeah, so that's what it was. You were
Yeah.
coming off of the mentality of the 50s and then into the 60s. I was born in 71, so they were already like.
So they were like,
They went
give
through
up.
they went through the drugs and the war protests and all that stuff and then
Stock
abortion was getting like
Yeah.
legalized. So it was a whole different mental time period. But okay. And plus and to be fair, I grew up on Long Island.
Yeah,
So
Long Island was
it
a
was
lot.
it was a little buffered.
Yeah,
We had different problems.
little
We
more,
we
yeah.
had problems, but we had different ones. But okay, so
we were in the projects, and the
yeah,
projects are not,
yeah,
not a place
yeah.
to
The
live in.
violence that I had to deal with was inside my home, and the BS was like fake rich kids that were bullying other kids. It wasn't the same.
Yeah.
But it honestly it ended up hitting the same because
But
I
it,
ended up in the same place.
you know,
Yeah.
they say luxury problems or
Yeah, no.
it's
Money
still a
doesn't
problem.
solve shit.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter if you're dying in a rich house or you're dying in a
In a
poor
poor
house,
house.
you're still dying. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you ran away, you
I ran
left.
away to a police station, and a cop told me there's no place to go, and I said, "You got to get me somewhere." And they were actually going to go arrest my mother, and I told them no, yeah, it wasn't her. I defended her, even though I knew what the
Did she
truth
date
was.
other people, or did she just
Oh,
throw
she-
back in her father? Did your
No,
father
she
ever
had
come
other
back?
boyfriends and everything the whole bit. And
Did your father ever come back?
well, my father actually lived 3 blocks from us,
Oh, that's
4 blocks.
interesting.
And so I would see him. I'd go to whenever I wanted to see him. I'd go to the grocery store. He was always working. He was always
So you
working.
had a
but-
relationship
Oh,
with
yeah.
him, just not in the house.
Right.
That probably was better for you, no?
It was. I mean,
Not to
because-
have the two of them like.
but
in
what
the
got
same
me was,
house?
well, he would come to the house sometimes. She'd throw hot water on him. Or
Oh, that's fun.
that was normal. Normal. She would abuse him, and I never saw him drunk. So I would always,
Like he's the victim.
yeah. And I was like, I would always tell her, like, "What are you doing?" And that's probably why she went against me. Is
Yeah, 'cause you were siding with
defending
him.
him.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then I'd see him in the grocery store. He'd give me some money. I never saw him drunk. I saw him drunk when I was 5 years sober.
Is that interesting how we
Yeah.
will pick a parent and try to defend them? Like, my dad beat me pretty badly, but usually he would only beat me if my mom would yell for him to stop to do something, you know? It was like it's so interesting how like without us even realizing it, we pick a side, you know? Like I did not want to be like my mother. I had no respect for her. Meanwhile, my dad, you know, was not perfect either. They were
Yeah.
both out in addiction, right?
Right.
And
That's-
sick.
And I didn't know, I mean,
Did your
I
mom
just,
drink at all or do anything,
my
or was
mother
she more
got
like a
poisoned
codependent?
once with alcohol.
And that was it.
And that was, so she didn't do it much. And it was her.
But
one
did
of her
she
friends.
grow up in it? Did her parents?
I don't know. I
man.
don't really.
You don't care.
No, but you know what? My
Oh,
grandmother.
that far, it's hard to find out.
Yeah,
stuff.
my grandmother was an angel. I mean, we had to go to her house every Sunday. So we walked 3.5 miles to her house every Sunday to
Uphill.
have dinner.
Both ways.
Uphill, yep. Up Riverside, Grant's Tomb, Riverside Parkway, all the way up to Washington Heights from 123rd Street in Amsterdam.
I don't know if you guys have this in Vegas or anything, but this is a New York thing. It's like whenever people would talk about how hard it was to get somewhere, it's like we had to go uphill both ways.
Yeah.
It's no uphill both ways. This is the range.
It was just, it was just, when you're 7, 10 years old and you have to walk
Everything
2.5
uphill
miles,
both ways.
yeah, it was like, oh my God. And we did it every Sunday.
So what about your grandfather?
I've never met him. He died young.
You know what he died of?
It was,
I just
my
know,
house was,
I just know that if, like, for my own peace of mind, I went a little bit further up the family tree because I needed to forgive my parents and really kind of get an idea of like where they came from. Like I've said this on previous episodes, like I hated what my dad did to me until I found out what my grandfather did to him. You know,
See,
my
the
grandfather
old
was a boxer. He was going professional, and my great grandparents bribed him with his inheritance and said, "If you keep boxing, we're going to take your inheritance, and so you could do it semi-pro, but you can't be professional." And he was my grandfather was like a specimen. I mean, at 90-something years old in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, he was in the paper for the fittest senior citizen. So my grandfather was like that guy, right? And I never saw him beat my dad. Of course, my dad was a lot older and bigger, right? But now when I found out years later that my dad was in certain ways a punching bag, it was like, it put it into perspective of he did what he knew and he was sick too. And if you grow up in that kind of crazy, you're gonna have crazy, and you're gonna pass on crazy. That's why this is a family disease, right?
That's why I said I know now. My mother died young, so did my siblings. She died at 64, and I know now that she was sick in her own way.
Yeah.
So I did forgive her. And I did forgive her. As a matter of fact, Christmas Eve of 1993, I told her that I was going to stop drinking, and that's all I told her. I didn't tell her about the drugs. I'm going to stop drinking. I stopped drinking. I'm good. I stopped 2.5 months ago, and and that's it. And she picked up her head and she smiled and said, she said, "I love you, son." And I was like, she might have said it many other times. I never heard it until that day. And I've always wanted to hear that from my mother.
Oh, I get the chills.
Yeah.
I love that.
Christmas Eve, 1993, and she died a month later.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So now, okay, so zoom back out. So now you've left. You've gone to the police station, and they suggested what?
No, there was no place for me to go.
So what did you do?
What happened was the police officer, I told him, he said, "There's no place for you to go. You better go back home." And I said, "Oh, I bet you it's not as drinkers and drug addicts. It's not what we say, it's how we say it."
Yeah.
I told him, I said, "I bet you if I go outside and rob a little old lady outside, I bet you find a place for me to go, right?" He said, "Yes." So I proceeded to walk outside.
Whoa, balls.
You know what happened after that? He brought me back in, and he said, "You're not going anywhere now." And he says, "You're going to go rob a little old lady." I said, "No, I didn't say that. I said, I bet you if I did." So what he did was he made some phone calls, and he says, I'll let you stay in my girlfriend's house overnight, and then tomorrow you have to go wherever we send you. Because there's no place to go tonight." And
Right.
I'm thinking,
Was it going to be like a
15 years
foster
old.
care thing? Or
no, well, 15 years old, I'm thinking, I'm staying with his girlfriend while he's working.
Ah!
I'm like, okay, I'll stay there.
Oh, God.
And I did learn about affairs that night. When he left, she took off her bathrobe and she was fully dressed. And she brings out a bottle. She goes, she called her brother out of the room and said, "You guys drink this. Don't open the door. Don't answer the phone." I was like, here I am thinking I'm going to be the affair. And it was somebody else. She went out that night, and me and him drank that whole bottle. And the next morning he said...
And she didn't think it was going to get back to her boyfriend, who's a police officer?
Yeah. I didn't tell him anything. We drank that bottle, and
Because she won your silence by giving you alcohol.
yeah, definitely. Well, he
Smart,
came out,
not so smart cookie.
he said, "Wow, you're deep." And I said, "What do you mean I'm deep?" He says, "We drank, and you really started, expressing yourself." And I don't remember that. And I said, "Because I know when I felt bad, I'd go to a female who's also drinking, because then we feel sorry for each other, and then we start a relationship."
Of course. How other way do you start a relationship? Take each other hostage a little bit.
Yeah.
It's romantic.
Yes,
Really.
really. That's what I
Okay.
did. And so I told him, I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." He goes, "No, you really need to talk to somebody."
Yeah.
And I guess
Because you were holding all that stuff in.
Yeah.
You didn't have anybody to talk to.
yeah. And then alcohol, they say it's a truth serum.
Yeah.
Sometimes
It
it
can
comes
be.
out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Sometimes it is.
uh,
So
the next
then-
morning.
what happened?
Next morning, they took me picked me up in a police car. At that time, the police cars were green with the little bubble on top.
I'm nodding my head, but I don't remember green. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
that one. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Before your time,
Yeah.
then they changed it to blue.
I love when people say that. People don't get to say that much anymore.
It was
Before
green
my
with
time.
a
Thank you for
little
making me
bubble
feel
on
young.
top, and
Yeah.
and green and white, and they would pick me up and took me to Brooklyn, and I thought it was a nice place because I saw this beautiful concrete walls and everything a little bit until we walk in there, and the door closes behind us, and it goes bang. And I'm like, "Where am I?" He said, "You're in the juvenile jail." He said, "You're going to stay here until we can find a place to go, for you to go. Because you threatened to go rob a little old lady." I said, "No, I didn't." And I went there, and I think that's what started me off in the profession I'm in now. Because I started making phone calls. I started using that phone call, the phone books at that time, and I called every city agency and said, I don't belong here. This cop did me wrong, this and that. I'm a victim. That's what we do is when we drink, and we put stuff in our bodies, we blame, I'm the victim, you made me do this. And so I called every city agency, every state agency. The state agency said, we have a place for you, and you can stay there. It's like a house. It's in the Bronx. We stay there. You're free to go, but you have to follow rules and regulations. And I went. I agreed. I said, yeah, I made a deal with them that I'd go. And it was a state a halfway house for prisoners.
They put a 15-year-old in a
And
state halfway house.
It was a juvenile state halfway house. And I was like,
Whoa.
I didn't belong here either.
No.
So I started making phone calls again.
Yeah.
Phone calls again, and I got in touch with another city agency. They said
It's so interesting that you were seeking a place. Because, like, when I wanted to run away, the only thing I could fathom, and granted, this is a good 12, 13 years after you, right? Whatever. I didn't figure the math out. But I kept thinking I was going to end up in a foster home or on the street with probably selling my body.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted, foster home. I
wanted that. I actually, sometimes I did, but then, interestingly enough, my mom would say, where do you think you're going to go? You think it's going to be better than this? And I thought, better the devil you know. I decided to stay in my house, even though it did not get better. And often thought about how chicken shit I was to leave. And then if I would have just trusted God, if I would have just trusted my intuition, if I could have at that time, I could have left. I could have left and had a different life from that point rather than staying and trying to become strong, become clean in a mud bath kind of a thing. So that's pretty powerful that you wanted something that would be good for you.
Yeah.
And you wanted structure. And that you sought that.
I wound up going to a group home, and they said, you're going to go to the group home, but there's nobody there yet. It's not due to open for about 3 months. And I go, 3 months, no problem. I had my own cook, my own counselor, my own maid, everything, my own ping pong table. I couldn't play with it, but it was mine. I felt like
it was leveling up.
Yeah,
it was like, leveling up. You didn't have all the stress and the drama, your personal drama.
It was a beautiful place, brand new. It was in the Bronx. I was to go to school in the Bronx, and but then the other guys have to start coming in. It houses 12 guys, and they're bigger and badder than I am. So what am I going to do? We go to the woods to drink and do drugs, and I join them. And you
learn things that...
Yeah, I would go out there, and then one thing I did say is I went out there, and we were drinking in the woods, and I said, they would offer me pot, and I said, you crazy? I'm not going to do anything illegal. Not realizing that the drinking was illegal. I'm not going to do anything illegal, but I had a couple more drinks. I said, no, not now. I went from no, it's illegal to no, not now. A couple more drinks to just one drag. A couple more drinks, nobody would give me their pot because I got addicted right there. I wouldn't give it back. Yeah. So they wouldn't give it to me. I got addicted that night. I remember distinctly, this is one thing I'll never forget because it's my day that I stopped drinking. Also, August 12th, 1973, we were in the woods, and I was telling jokes, and this girl said, oh, I think you're cute, and this and that, the whole bit, so I love you. I have a very addictive personality.
Yes.
I love you. I started putting my hands on her and everything to open, and she pushed me away.
Oh, yeah, instant relationships.
And yeah, you said you like me. I love you.
Right.
I took her in and tried to grab her and hug her and everything. She pushed me away, and I was really embarrassed. Believe it or not, to this day, I still don't know what she looks like. But
you remember how you felt.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the thing with addiction.
Yeah.
You know how you felt. And I came out there, and I went home to do the next best thing. I tried to commit suicide.
Of course.
It was August 12th, 1973. Same day of my sobriety. In 1973, 20 years later, I decided I wanted to live.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that date just like stuck by me.
Yeah.
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 So I left there.
So what did you do? You decided you wanted to kill yourself. Did you try?
No, I took pills and but you know what? I knew I was afraid to die, because I told people what I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
going to
yeah,
do.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I tried to kill myself, and I'm going to do air quotes for the people on video.
Yeah.
But I tried to kill myself after drinking and doing stuff at a party, and but I walked down the middle of a road in a in the suburbs, like where in the middle of the night,
where everybody
where
knew.
maybe enough cars would come, and I had like dramatically given the ring to my boyfriend back before I left the party. And it's like, you deserve better. I'm done. And then his best friend, who had a crush on me, followed me like a puppy dog. As I'm aware, by the way,
Yeah.
that I have
I'm being
I-
followed, so
yeah,
let me
I have
make
an
it better.
entourage.
Let me
So
make-
I'm like sitting in the middle of the road on a street that I'm pretty confident I'm not going to get run over on,
Yeah.
and it's just so stupid.
It's the attention. You know that you're going to get the
Yeah,
attention. and-
because I did not. I thought of all the different ways, and one day I'm going to do an episode really digging into suicide. But like I did, I tried to think of all the different ways that I could kill myself, and every single one of them didn't pass because I could fail or I could succeed.
Yeah.
And I just was like, sheesh.
I was afraid. Yeah, I was
I
afraid.
just
didn't
didn't
know
want to
what was
be
gonna happen.
here. I didn't want to do this anymore, and there weren't any other options but the idea of suicide, and so suicide became one of my addictions, the suicidal ideations. So you
Yeah.
took pills, but you
Yeah, I
didn't
wound
take
up in a
enough.
psychiatric hospital and met somebody there, and we
A
had crazy
hospital or the psychiatric part of a hospital?
psychiatric
Okay.
ward. Yeah, and we wound up having a crazy relationship at the
Okay.
hospital.
Yeah,
I said I fell in love with her because
she gets you.
you know, yeah, what a crazy relationship, and her parents for
And
my
there's
birthday.
so much time for
brought me-
intimacy in the psych
Yeah.
ward.
Yeah, 24 hours a
It's
day.
so romantic, and there's that added danger of having to hide behind a door. I mean, like, really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Her parents brought me a cake and a full 3-course meal for my birthday to the hospital.
wow.
And so they actually took me in as the father didn't know we were having a relationship. He was like, "You're my new son," and this and that. No, but I don't mess around with my sisters. But I'm not going to tell him that part, But I hung out with them like day and night for years. I mean, to this date, we just celebrated being friends for 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they
It's
adopted you.
Yeah,
Not formally, but
not
yeah.
formally. It was just like
That's
forget it.
beautiful.
And the parents just died. I went to the funeral because I was required to go because I did more for them than their own son did, and
And
so-
they did more for you
and
than
they
in
did more
certain
for me
ways
than
you
my own
don't.
family. Yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah. They really. I had my own apartment when I was 17. I got my own apartment because I was working. Like I went to high school in the Bronx. I became very popular. I had my own desk in the principal's office.
Oh, that's great.
Hey, I was popular. That's the way I looked at it, and and I started this executive internship program.
Okay.
I believe it or not, well, I didn't start it. What happened? This woman came into the principal's office and said, "Well, we're going to start this executive internship program, so I'm going around to the schools and see what the principals think about it." So he said, "What does it entail?" And she said, "Taking the kid out of school for 6 months." And he said, "Stop right there. Take the kid out of school for 6 months." She goes, "Yeah, we teach him a trade." He goes, "There's your first victim right there." He said, "Take him." And I wanted to be a big shot. So, of course, I'll go with you, the whole bit. I went for an interview, and it was amazing. I went for this interview, and the executive director says, "I like the way you interview." He said, "There's only one thing." He says, "You got to change the way you dress." I said, "What are you talking about?" I went there I had a black velvet suit, red
Black
shirt,
velvet.
white tie, platform shoes, and I had an afro.
That's
I
great.
thought I looked great. And he said, "No, this is business attire."
Mm.
And that's what got me. And I should have realized then that I had an alcohol problem. Because I said, if I have to change the way I dress, I got to stop what I do. I got to stop drinking. I got to stop drugging. And so for those 6 months, I did everything I was supposed to do and required to do. I graduated with straight 97s. From a 40 to a 97. It
Wow,
was
our
like,
stories are so parallel. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy. I ended up getting told that I needed to drop out of school because I was on the top 10 people that missed the most school. and I had a gash across my face from my last ever altercation with my mother, and which I put Neosporin on to make it all nice and shiny because again I have to have attention.
Yeah.
And but I wore black all the time, and
Yeah.
not black velvet with an afro, but
It's close to
But
it.
I like the platform shoes. I'm all about that. So but I also like ended up like there has to be a way, and I ended up I ended up doubling up on my classes and really focusing and taking 3 years of school in the same year. And I graduated a year early from high school and a year early from college, and in that way, and well, actually almost, and I had 3.9 average in college, and I got straight A's in high school when I went from barely passing, barely there, taking the test at the end of the year to show that I understood the material enough.
Right.
How interesting, how parallel that is.
Mm.
Yeah, so at this point, we're going to take a break, and please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or are meant to replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. So we're going to take a quick break for a commercial, and we'll see you just in a bit. Thank you. The Meeting Space is a facility with over 100 weekly recovery meetings for addiction from alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, codependency, and PTSD. When someone is scared to go to their first meeting, we walk them through the process, ask them and answer questions to assuage their concerns. Many are court-ordered to attend, and we provide free court papers and teach them the process. Our glass-enclosed, soundproof children's playroom enables parents to be in a meeting while watching their children. We have healing workshops, craft fairs, and special authors who come to teach and sit with our fellowships. During COVID, we were declared an essential business by the County Commissioner's Office. We were kept open so that we can continue our daily work with traumatized chronic relapsers and those who would have used alcohol or drugs in isolation. Local businesses rent our space as well to financially help with this mission, and they get to have a great location for their business meeting or training. The recovery store in the center of our facility provides literature, clothing, medallions, and custom gifts to encourage, aid in, and celebrate a person's recovery from alcohol, drugs, PTSD, or unhealthy behaviors. Both the recovery store and the meeting space are open every day, including holidays. Saving lives, educating the community, reducing social stigma, providing a safe place for people to heal. Our nonprofit is supported entirely by donations by people like you who want everyone to have a place to go to heal. Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. We're joined here with Tony, and we were just talking about all the fun he had growing up. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about what led up to his bottom.
Well, what happened was, like I said before, I went into his internship program. That guy got me a job at with the city of New York, and the principal got me a job. No, the principal got me a job with the city of New York, and the executive director got me a job at Arthur Treacher's as a manager. And so I went out there, and I knew to make a deal with everybody, and I told all my employees, you make me look good, and I'll have the alcohol at night. I had the best store in the Bronx, and I worked for the city, and I got promoted from school aide to I went to the academy for 6 months to become a peace officer for the city of New York, and but that didn't stop my drinking. That would enhance it more because now I knew I was civil service. The other job, I was the boss. I can't get fired, And with city of New York, I actually got hurt on the job one day, on a sober day. I did not drink that day at all because I knew I had to go for my annual physical the next day. So, you go to your annual physical, you got to make sure you don't drink, you don't do anything. So I did that, and I fell on a wet floor, then a week later, I fell off my crutches and messed up my back. I've had 5 spinal surgeries so far. The
Wow.
last one was last year.
Wow.
In
So that's
the
another
past.
thing we have in common, spine stuff. That's
Yeah, I
interesting.
had the spinal surgery,
I
and
didn't have surgery though.
yeah. Well, the thing with Arthur got wind of that I was at McDonald's. They heard I was a great manager and this and that, so they offered me less hours and more money. And so I did the same thing over there. The same. I knew it worked. You bribe your employees, and there was only one employee that didn't like me, and I couldn't stand her, and I totally washed the walls, and she told me where to go and how to get there. And today she's my wife.
Oh,
We've been together going on 44 years now in October.
interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. I took her in, and I actually invited her to my house with her friend because I actually wanted to meet her friend, and I don't know, our hands touched while we was looking at pictures, and that was the end of that. And so I took her in as my hostage. Today I say I took her in as
Yeah,
my hostage.
absolutely, because you were in your addiction.
Yeah, I got her pregnant purposely because I wanted somebody to love.
Wow.
And I knew if I got her pregnant,
She would
stuck
stay.
with me.
Mhm.
And that's what we do with
Yes.
in addiction.
That
We
is
just
definitely.
take.
Everything's selfish and self-absorbed. Even in our most loving, we're possessive, controlling, obsessed, and maybe unavailable. So yeah,
And we, in the beginning we partied, but she got pregnant, she stopped.
she was an alcoholic.
Today she doesn't even want to have a drink in front of me, and I says it's not your problem, it's mine. And she will if she's with her friends or whatever, but she stops. I mean, I think she hasn't gotten in past 44
not-
years. She's gotten
It's
drunk
not
like
even,
twice.
yeah, it's not that important to her.
No, it's not. She could stop, and but
It's not her
for the
solution.
first couple of years, we had fun. It was good, and then my drinking just started taking off because I got involved with other things. My coworkers introduced me to, why are you always tired? It's just, well, because I'm drinking and this and that. They said, well, this will keep you up, cocaine, and this will keep you up, and I'm like, oh, and that's illegal. My drinking and my pot smoking was illegal, But well, that time drinking was legal because I was then of the age. And, I went out there and it just kept on getting worse. I started staying out, started hanging out with my friends more often, and if I had prisoners or something, I right after there went straight out. Come back the next day or something, whatever. My wife will send me out for cigarettes, and I wouldn't come back for 2 days. And what pissed her off more was I forgot the cigarettes.
Hmm.
So,
So your
Age
wife
12.
was used to that? Your wife was used to you just taking off? And
yeah, she just got. I mean, it was. I would actually pick up her friends to bring them to the house.
she never complained about it?
Oh yeah, yeah. It
But she
gradually.
accepted it.
It gradually got worse with the arguments, and my daughter at 12 called me an alcoholic. I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, I want to know when I could be a kid again." And I said, "You are a kid, you're 12. She says, "Then why am I putting on your pajamas? Why am I tucking you in to bed?
Wow.
Why am I kissing you goodnight?"
Wow.
And that was something
Wow. Good girl.
yeah, she did. She made me look at myself.
Wow.
And I thought about stopping for her. That doesn't work.
Mm-mm.
I didn't.
It's not
her
about
or my
the
wife.
love.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't for her, or my daughter, or my wife. We weren't even married. We actually, before I decided that I really wanted to live the life that I should be living. We were together 14 years. So I went and I got sober, and I stopped drinking for a week and 2 weeks, and about a month later, I told my wife, I said, "I'm sober now. Can you marry me?" And she said, "No."
This is one of my favorite parts of your story.
Yeah. And then I went on and I kept on asking her like every couple of weeks, and she said, "No." After a year, I got tired of it. That's it. I'm not marrying you. And after 5 years of not drinking, she turned around and looked at me, and it was for my birthday, and she said, "I'll marry you now." So we got married.
That had to have made that matter more.
Oh yeah.
Because
It
it's like
was like-
because you earned that trust. That's just incredible. Okay.
Yeah, that was 5 years. And I mean, to this day, she's she's not happy. I mean, we still have our issues.
Yeah.
I have a lot of medical issues because of my alcohol and drug abuse. I was an asthmatic. I was in the hospital, and there was a time. It was 2.5 years. I was in the hospital 22 times, and from the asthma. I mean, I was in a coma.
Do you still have asthma?
No, believe it or not, I outgrew it.
Because I had really, really bad asthma and sleep apnea, and then I did this practice called Buteyko, and it really corrected it.
No, I think I grew out of it because years of not abusing my body. Because there was once, I mean, me and her broke up, and I thought it was good. I bought a half a gallon of Bacardi and a gram of cocaine, and decided to drive around the Bronx, feeling sorry for myself, and I started getting an asthma attack. I pull up in front of the emergency room, and the doctor, I mean, the security guard already knew me. They all knew me.
Oh, that's great.
And they would go, "Oh, here comes Anthony. Here he comes. Here comes Tony." And so I said, "I got to go to the bathroom first, I want to go wash up. I don't want them to smell the alcohol." And half hour later, they broke the door down and found me in between the thing. I was about to die from alcohol poisoning. I was in a coma for 5 days. And the first person when I woke up, first person I blamed was her, because she left me. It was her fault. She had nothing to do with it. But and, since then, I've had, like I said, I've had 5 spinal surgeries. My intestines ruptured about 6 years ago. During my time, that I wasn't drinking. Thank God, I wasn't drinking. Any medical episodes I've had, I've been able to take care of them. Like for Mother's Day 7 years ago, I just got out of 13 days. That was my real last asthma episode. I was in the hospital for 13 days. And the day I got out, I just wanted to go out and have a sandwich or something. And we went out, had a sandwich, and on the way home, I started throwing up. And I said, I just got out of the hospital. It can't be anything,
Right.
So I throwing up, so I went home, and then that was Friday. And then Saturday, I was up all night Friday, and then Saturday I was like, something's wrong. Like 3 o'clock in the morning, it's like I'm still throwing up and I'm not feeling good. So I said, and I have bad stomach ache. I said, take me. I'll take myself to the emergency room. I mean, I got this. I got this. And she said, no, I'll take you. And so she took me, and I'm so grateful for this doctor. He was a chief surgeon in the hospital. He doesn't work on weekends. He happened to be there and saw the x-rays, and he calmly explained everything to my wife, real calm, like nothing. And so, medicine, IV, this and that to help him. My wife says, well, if he needs surgery, how soon does he need it? And he looked at her and he said, 45 minutes. That's all I give him to live.
Wow. What was it?
My intestines were rupturing.
Wow.
So, he said, if I don't get in there in 45 minutes.
This was after you were sober?
Yeah, this was only 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
Yeah,
Wow.
3 years sober.
God. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so then, wow.
Yeah, he saved my life.
So okay. All right, interesting. So you also, on your career path, you ended up getting more and more into security, right?
Yeah, well, it's amazing that I am after I stopped drinking. I retired from the city of New York. My drinking, that's why my drinking really took off. I was home. I was Mr. Mom.
Yeah.
I had everything. She was working. The kids were in school. They came home at 3 o'clock. I picked up 5 kids, my daughter and 4 other kids. I start getting them playing games and doing their homework in the living room. I go in the kitchen and cook. My little glass on the side, the whole bit. And so I did that. And then after a while, it was like, what am I doing? And in 2001, I says, I have 1993, I got sober, and I'm doing the Mr. Mom thing. And I said, I'm not doing anything. And I said, I can do something. And I started in 1986 or something. I started working for somebody who was a private investigator. He was teaching me the ropes. And so he said, you catch on pretty quick. I said, well, as a kid,
I have a little experience.
I have a little experience when I ran away from home. I
was made for this show.
Yeah. And he brought me around, and he left me on my own. He said, I don't have to teach you anything. And so in 2001, I opened my own company, Little Investigation and Process Serving. And then in 2006, I came out to Vegas on a false pretense. Somebody told me he had a lot of work for me and this and that, the whole bit. He came out here, had a house built. The whole bit I didn't think I could afford it, which almost I didn't. And I sold my house in New York and came out here, and he had no work. And so I said, what do I do?
Right.
I said, what am I going to do now? And so I had to go work in the casinos on the strip, making $12 an hour, coming from New York, making $25 to $40 an hour. I said, $12 an hour. People would say, are you actually going to do that? I said,
Well, the cost of living in New York is a lot higher too,
yeah.
so there's a little bit of a.
But see, I didn't
Still.
look at it that way.
Yeah.
I looked at it as,
But
I'm
you're
getting a job.
hungry.
I'm
Yeah.
getting a job.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing something.
Yeah, for sure.
And I made $28,000 the first year.
Yeah.
So because I did a lot of overtime and everything, the whole bit, I worked my butt off. And I came out here and I brought my New York license to Carson City and said, hey, I want my license turned over. They looked at me like I was crazy and they said, you have $2,100 for the 3 licenses and 6 months wait. And I go, what do I do? And so that's why I went to work for the casinos while I was getting my license. And since then, word of mouth,
And your work ethic.
my worth ethics, because
And
I brought it
because
from
you're
the East
sober,
Coast,
too.
and the fact that I don't drink and don't drug
And you're
do anything.
working your recovery, and so you're learning how to use your raw talent and the things that we do learn in survival mode growing up, coupled with the things that we learn in recovery, and God is a very powerful combination that can make us way more than we would have been without. It's just a powerful thing, and so yeah. And then I think you were written up in something recently. Some sort
a
of
couple articles, the 100 entrepreneurs of the world for the year, and also what was this other one, businessman or something or whatever. And I'm also coming into recovery and taking care of myself. I know that as a child, as a teenager, I abused women and stuff and used them, and so now I'm on the advisory board of Shiro, which is a program for 25-year-olds and younger who exploited into sex and sex trafficking and everything. So I'm on the advisory board there, so we could help them, take them off the streets.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I've put my efforts into things I know I can do instead of thinking, oh, a drink's going to solve this.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. It's wonderful. And so what do you feel like some of the things that you've been able to like heal and overcome in recovery as well on a personal level?
And one thing I express when I talk to people is, I am no longer a victim.
Mm,
You have to stop being a victim,
yeah.
because that stunts your growth. As long as you keep on thinking you're a victim, it's pour me a drink, pour me a drug. That's what it is. And I had to stop doing that. I am no longer a victim. And I have employees who tell me I don't understand. Then I give them a little bit of projects, welfare cheese, and all that good stuff. And, and I did drugs and alcohol. And you know what? I'm a successful businessman now because I don't do any of that. It is this, stopping all of that and stopping the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Now I do the same thing over and over again because I know the results I'm getting.
And to be fair too, because it's very easy for somebody to say, oh, well, there are plenty of successful business people who do drugs or alcohol. But one thing that I've learned is that the definition of success is to be able to be thriving and abundant in all the areas of your life to the best of your ability. And so somebody could be quite financially successful, but their health is on a decline or their relationships are shit.
It's still miserable.
And still missing something. Like there's something significant missing. Like what's the trade-off? To be like I was talking to my spiritual mentor in recovery this morning, and we were talking about how this erroneous idea of balance and how you have you're trying to control it by, I'm going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And as long as I have fun and I work hard and I play hard and whatever like that, then I have balance in my life. But maybe because of some of the things my working hard and playing hard entails, I don't have relationships that really are deep and significant. I don't know myself. I don't feel comfortable in my own skin enough. I don't think anything's ever enough. I don't have a conscious contact enough with a higher power. I don't see a deeper purpose. I'm not helpful. I'm not of service to other people, my health, whatever. So to say, here, look, I built this up. I use some of the raw things that I learned from growing up the way that I did, coupled with the tools I've learned in recovery to get here, is the most important, because what you are experiencing in your success and what you're doing with your success and your attitude about your success is not what it would have been had you pushed without recovery.
Right.
And dry or not dry, using or not using, didn't have the tools.
Right. No, you have to focus on what you're going to do for yourself first. And first of all, you also have to focus on yourself first before you focus on anybody
Absolutely.
else or your family. My
and that's
daughter,
part of taking responsibility when you're no longer the victim, because I had victimese. It was one of my native tongues, and I used it. I manipulated with it. I justified my bad behavior with it, but once taking responsibility for my life and for my feelings and for my relationships and stuff, what ends up happening is you become a much more powerful person in your own life, because the story of being at the effect of everybody else, it's like I'm a ping pong ball, I'm just being.
Yeah, because of my life, my daughter has never been abused. She says she was a victim, and I said, "Were you a victim of Daddy didn't come home?" I said, "Come on now."
It's all relative.
But it is. It's a feeling, and I can't stop her from feeling. But there's been so many other things that have happened, and so what do I do with it? I have a choice: either forget everything and run, or face everything and recover.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to do, and basically not feel like, oh, you're against me. Everybody, because the world was against me. To me, the world was totally against me. Everybody was against me.
And yet, even in your childhood, when you're 14 and you're wanting to find another place, even in that, you had a solution-oriented attitude, which is not common, I feel. I'm sorry, but usually a lot of people get into recovery with a very problem-oriented attitude, and so, but armed with solutions and being hungry for, if you're putting yourself into whatever you put yourself into, it's obvious you put yourself into it. And so putting yourself into recovery and getting those tools and not being a victim allows you then to have the open mind and the willingness to see other tools that you added. So what else do you feel were miracles that happened in your...
Like I said, the first thing was getting married. I have my daughter almost died in a bad car accident. She was in a Dodge Ram 2500, and when I went to identify her bag, it looked like a Chevy Corvette.
Oosh.
That's how much it was smashed, and she was a front passenger. She was uncritical for 3 weeks, and she wasn't supposed to have any kids. We've got 2 beautiful grandchildren and stuff. I dealt with the loss of my mother with only 5 months not drinking, and I didn't go out and drink over it, but that was the first thing that came to my mind, but I was told it's not a solution.
Right.
And
We don't drink
recently,
no matter what.
the past 3 years, I lost 3 siblings. One, my oldest sister first, and then my 2 brothers. My brother, who actually helped me out in finding myself and telling me there was a solution and where to go and how to get help.
Yeah, and when you lose somebody really close to you, that was part of your whole development of your identity. It shakes you. It shakes your whole story of life and God and what are things for and why and stuff like that, and it makes you question your own mortality. Yeah.
And then the recent one, the one that just passed away, was the guy I was compared to. I was going to be, I would never be like him. It's amazing. He wound up being what I was as a kid. We wound up changing roles, and I was still there for him regardless. Still did whatever I could because I know that resentments is just, it's just another form of getting ready to go back out. Going
It's
back out
toxic.
and drinking. Yeah, it's very. I couldn't hold that in anymore. I mean, he abused me as a kid also.
It's also like when we have resentments towards another person, we're giving them the energy, whether they're aware of it or not. And like when we forgive and we come from love, we are extending a better example, but we're also extending the love, the energy, the hey, it's all good, you're totally lovable. And so like people are that close to us are affected by how much we are working on our own recovery. They are.
Yes.
Whether we're interacting with them on a regular basis, if I'm holding something against my mother, for example, if I didn't get to a place of forgiveness from my parents and really see, what was really going on with them, and if I didn't do that, I would not be extending the love and forgiveness when I interact with her. I'd be holding it still against. It's very difficult for somebody, unless they're a complete narcissist, which is possible, to not end up feeling bad about themselves in these installment plan whenever they know that somebody is not talking to them or talking to them in a way that they still have judgments and resentments. It's very difficult to break that and to be able to say that's yours and I love myself and I forgive myself, because it's difficult. But when somebody else can forgive, it opens the door for self-forgiveness for a person oftentimes that may not even be doing the work. So for you to heal those relationships on your side of the fence, and to be able to extend that, and to let that go, I know it had to have made a difference.
Oh yeah, it is. It's I was taught, and I had to learn this. I mean, because I didn't know nothing but poor me. That's all poor me.
Yeah.
And I had to learn. I had to learn to take care of me, forgive myself first, so I could forgive others and help others and be there for others. And whether or not they accept it or not, I'm
Right.
cleaning up my side
Yeah,
of the street.
absolutely.
I'm taking care of anything that I did wrong. Once I do that, I feel good. I walk with my head up, and I go
Your
anywhere.
head goes on the pillow, you're fine. Yeah.
And, I mean, since recovery, I've baptized two of my nieces, my great nieces' kids. I found my niece, who my brother abandoned, the one who just passed. He abandoned his daughter when she was 7. I went and found her, and I brought her back into the family, and we're the closest ever. Stuff like that. I found, I find people, and that's what I love doing it because
So
I
if I
know
ever
the
need to
feeling.
find somebody, I'll know to ask you.
Yes, definitely.
So I kind of, in my former life, I became very good at finding people, but it was more like, I figured out how to. It's a little stalky, but that's just.
See, yours is illegal. Mine's
Yeah.
legal.
Well, I didn't do anything illegal per se. It was more like, like what's going on, what's the truth, kind of a thing. But yeah, now I don't even care.
Yeah.
But if somebody goes missing, and they go, oh, when was the last time they saw him at the meeting space? I have to go looking through the cameras and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not even anything.
Well, no, that's it. That's the thing. Also, like I go out there. Like I have employees now. I'm a successful businessman now because I don't drink and do any drugs.
And how you treat your employees and
Yeah.
how you teach your employees.
I've actually
You're being an example.
two of my employees. I actually had to tell them that I knew what they were doing, and they were like, "How would you know?" Been
Because
there
I
and done
used
it.
to do what you're doing.
And unfortunately,
And
I
you
had to
told them
tell
about your recovery?
I told them. I said, "You
Did they
got
get
to
into
stop."
recovery?
Well, one did, and he did for a little while, but then he went back out, and he's doing some time now, unfortunately. And there's another one who he said, "How did I know about the excuses?" Well, who keeps on falling out of buses or falling into buses, who keeps on getting hurt after every payday. Alcoholics do that, and drug addicts. A payday the day after, of course. Yeah, I got stabbed, I got robbed. It was every payday, and I said, "Listen, I know."
So,
what you're
I
doing.
could tell you, I'm going to not pay you anymore because I care about you
Yeah.
and I don't want you to get hurt.
Exactly. And,
Okay, well, we're coming up on the end of the hour. Is there anything that you would like to share with people watching that you feel is on your heart?
my thing is, what I tell everybody is never give up. If you have a chance to get help, somebody's willing to help you, let let them love you until you can love yourself. It's hard. It's hard to go out there to do something, but not know how to do it, or not know how to get the help, and go out there and easily give up because you don't feel you're worth it. You are perfect example from the projects. 7 kids. I'm about to retire. I'll be set for the rest of my life. But I'm still gonna keep on taking care of my recovery. That's the
All
main
right,
thing.
perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I love that you did this. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. You can go to themeetingspace.com and you can click on the Real Recovery Show, and you can see all of our episodes there. You can there's plenty of links on themeetingspace.com as well for all the different platforms that we're on, and we're actually adding more, so you can go check us out. If you'd like to support us, please do, and let other people know that we have this show and that the Meeting Space is a nonprofit and can use support. And yeah, I'm very grateful for all of this, so thank you again, and thank you for joining us at the Real Recovery Show. We'll see you next week.